What is going on, you guys? My name is Hugh, and welcome to the second part of the Big Time Spider-Man outfit. And in this part, we're actually going to be doing two things. One of them is redesigning the padding that's actually a part of the print on the suit. So I'm noticing some pads that are on the knees, elbows, and shoulders. So we're going to be recreating those, make it a little bit more 3D. And also, we're going to be remaking the mask. Because I didn't like the one that came with it, because the eyes were like, it looked like it was hopped up on something. It looked a little weird. So we're going to recreate that mask and make it a little bit more badass than what came with the outfit. So without further ado, let's go over the materials list and get this video started. Here are the materials you will need. A pair of scissors, super glue for the plastic parts, fabric glue for the fabric parts, a crafting knife, or I guess you could probably use a giant pocket knife if you have one. I'm going to be using this plastic I found for the new lenses on the new mask. And also picked up some one-way window tint, which is actually going to be super helpful on making sure you don't see through the goggles once you get everything together. What is this? Oh, yeah, that was the original mask. We're going to use that as a template for the new one. This is the fabric that I was able to use. It's like a hexagon, kind of like stretchy swimsuit fabric, but it was really cheap and I was actually able to find it at the crafting store. And last but not least, we're going to be using the sticky back foam blower. I love this stuff and you can find it anywhere in a crafting shop. Now these templates were pretty hard to do, so I had to have a little help with it. Shout out to my mother for giving me a hand with that while I was wearing the suit. So all these shapes you're seeing are basically when the suit is on me. That way when I create these pads and you put them onto the suit, they're not going to be too small, they're not going to be too large. So these are going to be perfectly sized once we get it all pieced together properly. Alright, let's go ahead and start with one of these shoulder pads here. Just going to trace it on the back of the sticky foam. Now remember, the sticky side goes on top of the suit, and then the other side is where the fabric is going to be facing outward. I had to make sure I remembered that, otherwise I would mess it up, and I had to go out and get more foam. So make sure if you're going to be doing that, know which side the sticky side needs to go onto. And the method here is also, once we get it all stuck to the costume, we can also sew it on for a little extra strength, so it's not going to fall off if we actually wash the costume. Alright, so now that we got all that settled, I had to double check it and make sure I had it on the correct side. And it looks like we did a pretty good job, so I labeled which one was left and which one was right. Now so we can move on. Alright, let's go ahead and work on the knee pads. Same method, trace it on the back part of the sticky foam. Go ahead and start cutting away. Okay, the knee pads are pretty much done. Let's move on to the next component. Now I actually thought about it for a little bit and I wanted to add these little dots on here just to kind of give it a little bit of a texture, so that way when you put the fabric on it you can feel that it feels like real padding even though it's just foam. So it gives it a little bit more thickness, a little bit more character, as you will. That way when you put it on the suit and you feel it, it feels like there's actually some padding in there and not just like a piece of foam board. You don't really have to do this. I wanted to go the extra mile just to add a little extra detail into this. Alright, let's go ahead and put together the elbow pads. Okay, let's go ahead and start lining up our fabric. This fabric is actually really soft, it's very comfortable, and I think it's a little bit waterproof too. Now I'll go ahead and start tracing the fabric design onto the actual fabric. This is going to be a little bit larger than the foam pattern. That way I could be able to have a little bit of extra fabric to play with once I get it on the foam pad. A little extra fabric wouldn't hurt anybody because you can always trim it down later. Better to have extra than have too little. I'll tell you one thing, it was really difficult to be able to see my little lines that I've engraved in the fabric, so it was blacked out everywhere. Alright, so we got those guys chopped out. let's go ahead and get the foam pads and start adding them on there. Now this was an interesting method. I peeled off a little bit of the sticky stuff, and then after that I folded in the fabric on top of that sticky part. And then I started going around the edges and curving the fabric so it can still get the curvature on the edges. And also saved a little bit of the paper so that way I can be able to put it away before we put it on the costume. As you can see, I added those dots in there to give it a little bit of extra detail, and I think it turned out really good. So if it's not stretched out, you don't see anything. When you stretch it out, you can see the little dot patterns behind it. I thought it was really interesting, so you can see that there's texture behind that. And basically did the same method to all the other pads, cut out the fabric using the fabric pattern, and then folded it all around the rounded edges to keep it nice and smooth so you can still get the rounded edges. Once we stick it on the costume, we can be able to sew it all together, give it a little extra strength, that way it's not going to fall off if we throw it in the wash. Alright, so now I can move on to the goggles. I'll leave a link in the description if you guys want to get these goggles yourself. You can change the color however you want, but I definitely needed it to be green. And it was pretty easy to disassemble it. Pretty basic setup too, like just regular wiring. It's got some cheap mesh on it. But the elastic and the rubber was top quality, and I was very impressed by that. Even the white light that came with it looked really good. So you can pretty much use this mask for any sort of party outfit that you want to do. But in my case, I definitely needed the template to be able to play with it. And this is the green wire that I was able to get. I'll leave a link in the description so if you guys want to get this or a couple of different colors. They have it in red, they have it in blue, they have purple, they have white. I think they even have gold or yellow. But in this case, we're definitely going to need that green. First thing I did is started peeling off this mesh material. Just took my little crafting knife and started carving it out. Pretty easy to do. It wasn't really glued in there very well, which makes it easier to disassemble. And then I started just ripping the wire out. Still easy. Wasn't really glued on there very well. And then I measured the green wire to the original wire that was in there, and I did add a little bit of extra wiring on the green just so I have a little bit extra space in case it was too short. You always be courteous enough to add a little bit of extra something just in case you're not too short. Same thing with the fabric and also with this green LED strip. You don't want to be too short because then you're going to regret it later. Once you chop this wire off, you can't be able to glue it back together and make it work. Alright, so once that's all measured out and cut out, now we can go ahead and start using the super glue and installing it on the brim, like the very brim of the goggles. Pretty much exactly how the original strip that was in there was. Just gluing it on the outside of the goggles. Now be careful with the super glue. It is pretty powerful stuff, and I did get it stuck to my fingers a couple of times, but it does wash off. So once it fully dries, you go wash off your fingers. And I had to be super careful because if you put the super glue in the wrong spot, it's going to leave really weird marks and you will not be able to get it off, especially off that rubber material. And voila! Now we have some green goggles. These turned out super cool, even without the lenses in it. I liked how it looked. It gave it a little bit more of a night vision sort of look. And I actually stuck the battery pack on the back of the mask. That way, if it's portable, I can be able to just hit the button on the back of the mask, and I can also keep it off the rest of the suit. It just makes it easier to carry around. Now, this is what the original eye looked like. And like I said, it looked like he was spooked by something. They seemed a little bit too large. So we're going to be using this as a template to create better eyes for the new mask. This is basically a rough idea of what it's going to be looking like. And then I also fine-tuned it a little bit more using this design. So now it's a little bit more serious looking. Now it's a little bit more sharp than just wide-eyed. And I definitely like the way that looked. So you know what? Yeah, we're going to be going with this idea. Now let's roll out that beautiful green tint. And there's an interesting method to this. The way you can split this off is using some tape, just some regular tape to split the filming together. And it is an adhesive, which is actually pretty interesting. Alright, let's go ahead and place the new eye design on there and start cutting it out. That looks so nice. You can't see through it either. It basically acts like a pair of sunglasses. Now I'm just using the tape method to kind of split it away from the adhesive and then just very carefully add it on this little plastic piece. Now this plastic was very sensitive, so I had to make sure there was no air bubbles in it and to make sure the plastic itself was even clean. Because if any marks got on it, it ruined the entire lens. So I had to double make sure that plastic was clean before I put that lens on there. And voila, man, that looks so good. I could definitely make a pair of sunglasses out of this. And it's UV protected as well. People can't see in and you can only see out, which is actually pretty cool. That's the best thing about these one-way lenses, and I found out about this on a Spiderman forum. This guy made his own lenses using the same tint material. So now I'm going to be trimming these down just a little bit because the little edge in the back was a little bit too tall, so I trimmed it down just to fit perfectly behind the goggles. Now be careful with the super glue. Like I said before, if you put any sustenance of this super glue on the lenses, it will mess it up. So just be super careful, no pun intended, with the super glue. I actually had to redo these lenses a second and third time because on the second time I messed it up, and then the third time I finally got it right because I got some material on the inside and outside of the lenses. So lesson learned from me, don't do that. Bam, that looks so good. They literally look like a pair of sunglasses. And I think the green tint really does sell the night vision look of these goggles, especially with the green lighting on there too. Now I'm going to be recreating some fresh base platforms for the new mask, so that way the goggles have something to sit on instead of just the fabric itself. And I basically designed it based on the outside part of the goggles there. And then I'm going to be able to trim down a little bit and also cut out the eye holes based on the eye design on the actual goggles themselves. Now let's go ahead and start tracing it out and cutting it out of the... Let's go ahead and start tracing it out and cutting a hole in the foam. Whatever. I'm not even going to piss pock bitch. I'm gonna cut that thing out, I'm gonna put a hole in it, and then you're gonna cut that thing out again, put it on the goggles, and then hey-ba-doo. And there we go. Now we got some fresh base lenses for the new mask. Now, unfortunately, I did not film any of the process of the new mask being made, but I have to hand it to my own mother, because she has made me costumes for a long time. And she took up the podium on this one, so you gotta congratulate her. She did a fantastic job of remaking the new mask. And now this is what that mask looks like. I am super happy of how this turned out. I think the coolest thing about this is just the goggle idea. The goggles really sell it for me. I got this design idea not just from the Spider-Man Far From Home movie, which had the same setup, which was the goggles, and the goggles can move up and down and stuff on his stealth suit, but also I went back and watched some old gameplay of Splinter Cell, like from one of the old Splinter Cell games. And the character Sam Fisher had a really cool like stealth suit. Like he always has like the night vision goggles and like some kind of tactical outfit. So I wanted to kind of mix up the two outfits together. The big time suit mixed in with the Sam Fisher outfit. Boom. And then this is what I came up with. I think this is super awesome. Plus, it gives the costume a little bit more character, a little bit more of a 3D look than what it originally was. I didn't really like the mask that came with the suit. It looked a little weird. I think the one thing that didn't sell it for me was the eyes. They just looked too big. It looked like he was on something, like some like crazy hopped up medicine or something like that, or he just got spooked by something. He doesn't look very aggressive. It doesn't look very serious. I wouldn't even take the costume seriously. It just looks really goofy. And I did try to recreate the face shell, and the face shell was way too big for both the new mask and the old mask. So I wound up just scrapping the idea of the face shell, unfortunately. But I still have it over there. I might use it for something else, or at least use the foam material for something else. But honestly, when I tried this on, the only thing that I had a problem with, and why I made the face shell, is that. I don't know if you guys can see that. See how the nose is sticking out and then it just goes right on top of the mouth and then you see the chin? The actual Spider-Man mask does not do that. It kind of finishes out the dome look, so you don't see this indent. But once I put this mask on, the new one, it didn't really have any issues. So this part right here actually pushed out a little bit more once it was actually on like a real face, not a dummy face. And my hair did kind of help fill in some gaps too. So like there's some weird gappage on the fabric or creases. And my hair actually kind of filled in some of the space. And it turned out fine. Like this, it finished the dome look. Like I like the illusion of you can't see the guy's face like this. But my hair saved the day. Go hair. Because it did push out that little space and it filled in the rest of the gap. Fixed. So hope you guys enjoyed this second part. If you did, be sure to give it a fat thumbs up. And I'll see you goons later.